Chair, we are now live.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Welcome to the remote Teams meeting of the Stanley Town Council. This meeting is taking place on Tuesday, the 23rd of February 2021 at 6:30 p.m. and is streamed live to YouTube. I am your Councillor Carol Hampson, Mayor of Stanley, and I will be chairing the meeting this evening. I would like to extend a warm welcome to our guest speakers, members, officers, members of the public and the media who are watching this live stream. Before I commence with the formal business on the agenda, I would like to cover the housekeeping issues for us all to follow. For those taking part in the meeting, could you please only speak when invited to speak by myself as chair? Keep your microphone on mute at all times unless invited to speak. If you wish to speak, please use the raise hand function. Once invited to speak, please introduce yourself with your name and position unless you have already introduced yourself earlier in the meeting. If you have any issues with connectivity, try switching off your video and use the audio function. If connectivity issues continue, you may have to leave the meeting and rejoin to get a better signal. If a vote is needed, a roll call of councillors' names will take place. After your name is called, please unmute your microphone and state if you are for, against, or abstain. Then mute your microphone again. Please follow these simple rules, as it will help us in running the meeting as efficiently as possible. I will be pausing briefly when questions and comments are being invited to allow members to register their intention to speak. Please be patient should we encounter any issues. Thank you. Now moving on to the formal business on the agenda. Item number 1 on the agenda is apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence?
Madam Mayor, I can confirm I've received one apology for absence. That is Councillor Christine Bell.
Thank you. Item 2 on the agenda is declarations of interest. Does any members have any declarations of interest? Councillor Joan Nicholson.
This is Councillor Joan Nicholson on item number 13. I've taken some advice today, haven't gotten all the advice I need, but unfortunately the way I've written my register of interests, I'm not going to take part in the conversation or in the vote.
Thank you. We move on to anybody else? No.
Sorry, Chair, I've got my hand up. I don't know if you can see it. It's Councillor Carl Marshall.
I can't see. Hang on. Right, Carl.
Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Marshall.
I just think it'd be worth the clerk just clarifying the advice that he provided at the Finance Committee meeting, and because I think that was fairly conclusive on this, and that was backed up by the written advice from CDALC. Just in terms of the declarations, obviously we've all of us who are double hatters in terms of sitting on the town council and the county council have that on our declaration of interest forms, but it's my understanding, James, that this isn't a pecuniary interest and we wouldn't need to leave the meeting unless you've got something in writing that is to the contrary of that.
Chair, so just to confirm what Councillor Marshall did say there, that it is of my position and on receiving advice from CDALC that that based on the current situation, I do not believe there to be a pecuniary interest issue on this basis, and that members, regardless of whether they are a county council or not, are welcome to be involved in the discussion on item 13 and are welcome to vote on it as well.
Thank you for that clarification. We'll move now on to item 3, which is
Sorry, Chair. Can I just confirm that Councillor Nicholson would still like to declare an interest on that item and won't be participating in that discussion?
Councillor Nicholson, can you confirm?
Yes, Carol, I can confirm.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on to item 3, which is the Mayor's announcements. Since our last Stanley Town Council meeting, I've attended the West Stanley Colliery Memorial, also known to many by the Burns Pit Memorial, to lay a wreath on the 112th anniversary of the horrendous disaster where 168 men and boys sadly lost their lives. Unfortunately, there was no service due to the current circumstances, but I still paid our respects as the church bells of St Andrews tolled in the distance. Our Mayor's Award ceremony for 2019-2020 also had to be cancelled due to the pandemic, but we felt it was so important the people nominated did not miss out on their awards, so this week they are being delivered to them. Please have a look on the Stanley Town Council Facebook page for the update. I would like to commend each and every one of them for their time, dedication in what they do. I have still been active in the community, helping and supporting residents with all sorts of issues throughout the pandemic, all compliant with COVID rules. I would like to take this opportunity to personally thank all community groups, local businesses and individuals for all of their help, compassion and kindness during these hard, unprecedented times. Please keep up the great work and we will all get there together. As the new guidelines are released to start the easing of lockdown, our positive infection rates in the Stanley area are slowly coming down, but we are still above the national average. So I urge our residents to keep following the guidelines. Get your vaccinations and stay safe. I send my best wishes for a speedy recovery to those who are in hospital, and my deepest condolences to anyone who has lost family or friends in this dreadful pandemic. Thank you. James, do you have anything, a report to add on?
Yes, Chair. I've just got a few bits and pieces, if that's okay to go on.
Yes, please.
Okay, members, a question was raised at the 19th of January 2021 full council meeting regarding the Stanley Fund update report. It's just to provide a verbal report on that question that was asked. So the question was made reference to the monies outlined in the report and requested confirmation if the monies were specifically for the area of Stanley. So I just wanted to confirm that the Mourne Westlake amount of £40,000 and the National Lottery Community Fund amount of £200,000 is exclusive to the people of Stanley and surrounding wards. It is allocated place-based funding with geographies based only on the Stanley Fund. These monies will be administered through the County Durham Community Foundation. And then a little proposal, Madam Mayor, that we move item 20, which is the date, time and venue of the next meeting, to before the exclusion of press and public. That will allow the meeting to flow more appropriately.
No problem. Thank you very much for that, James.
If you're happy with that, Madam Mayor, I would just like to do the hear, see and papers check of everyone to ensure that everyone can hear, everyone can see, and of course they have their papers with them.
Thank you.
Not available. My apologies. Councillor Gordon Binney.
Yes.
Councillor Helen Clark.
Yes.
Councillor Joyce Clark.
Yes.
Alex Clegg. Councillor Alex Clegg.
You're on mute, Alex.
No, I didn't get them delivered.
You so you haven't got the papers in front of you?
No, I've got them on my phone, no.
Right. Okay. So you've got them in front. Right, that's fine. Okay. Councillor Mark Davidson.
Yes, I've got all three. Thanks, James.
Councillor Carol Hampson.
Yes, I've got them.
Councillor James Kane.
Yep, got them all.
Councillor Carl Marshall.
Yeah.
Councillor David Marshall.
Yes.
Councillor Joe McMahon.
Yep, got everything.
Councillor Ballatnair.
Yes, I have everything. Thank you.
Councillor Joan Nicholson.
Yes, I have everything.
Councillor Jack Pallas.
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Jeanette Stevenson.
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Les Timby.
Yes, I've got all.
Councillor David Tully.
Yes, I've got everything, thank you.
And Councillor Joanne Tully.
Yes, I've got everything, thank you.
And Councillor George Wilkinson. Okay, Councillor George Wilkinson isn't with us at present, so happy to move on, Chair.
Right, we'll move on to item 4 on the agenda, which is the leader's statement.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Councillor Les Timby, Leader of Stanley Town Council, Member for Southmore and Quaken Houses. Last week, the people of Stanley remembered the men and boys who lost their lives in the West Stanley pit disaster. Since that memorial was held, it's come to my attention that there is a mass burial grave of 35 victims of the West Stanley pit disaster in St. Joseph's Church, which has no recognition of the people who are in the mass grave, or it is the mass grave of the result of the West Stanley pit disaster. I would like Stanley Council to explore providing a memorial or a blue plaque for the recognition of those men and boys who are in the mass grave. I hope that Stanley Town Council officers will work with the Church of St. Joseph's and the School of St. Joseph's to explore and see, and I think it's something we pride ourselves on the heritage of Stanley, and to recognise them men and boys who are buried in a mass grave with no names or nothing. I think it's just a sad story, and we should, do something to recognise that. Yesterday, the Prime Minister announced his COVID roadmap to recovery. I hope it succeeds, but it'll only succeed if everyone adheres to the guidance that is part of that roadmap. We must follow the guidance, the government guidance, as this is the only way this roadmap can be a success. So if we abide by the guidance and follow the guidance in each step of it and stay safe, and we will come through this COVID in a better place. So I would also, to the residents of Stanley, if you're offered a job, take it, because that will only help us put a stop to COVID and make our lives a lot better to live. Thanks very much.
Thank you for that, Councillor Timby. We'll move on to item 5, which is the public participation. Do we have any questions?
Madam Mayor, I can confirm that there's been no questions received.
Thank you very much. We move on to item 6, which is confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 19th of January 2021. Can we have someone to approve them as a correct record, please? Councillor Timby has his hand up. Councillor Les Timby.
That hand shouldn't have been raised, Carol. I'm trying to mute it and it's me hands raising when I'm muting.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, I'll second that.
I need a propose. Councillor David Tully has his hand up.
Yes, just an amendment, Madam Mayor, to the minutes. As it was a recorded vote, there was no minuted record of who voted for, who voted against. I think there really should be, just for transparency. Thank you.
Chair, with regards to what Councillor Tully just said there, we can make that amendment and have it circulated.
Thank you very much. So do we have a proposer for the minutes? James Kane, you're...
I just want to move that we accept them, please, Chair.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Clegg, you seconded them, did you?
Yes, I did, yes.
Thank you very much for that. We'll move on to item 7, the committee minutes. We are asked to receive the minutes of the Finance and General Purpose Committee. Do we have anybody? Councillor James Kane.
Yep, I'm Madam Mayor, it's James Kane, Stanley Hall Ward. Sorry, I forgot to introduce myself the last time round. I just want to propose that we receive these minutes, please.
Thank you. Councillor Gordon Binney.
I propose that we second those minutes and receive them.
Thank you very much. Any questions on that? No. Don't see any hands. We'll move on to item 8, which is the Stanley Advice Support, and I'll hand over to James Black to introduce our speakers.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. So our first guest this evening is is Sam Scotchbrook, who is the Network Development Officer for from Advice in County Durham. Now, Sam does have a presentation which I will share in 1 second. Members, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Lovely. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can, Sam.
Lovely. That's great. Thank you, Chair. Can we just move on to the next slide, please? So what I wanted to do was just give really an update of where we are in terms of the Stanley Advice Hub. So just to kind of look at where we go back a little bit to when we started, which is our we're in our 3rd year now. So the Stanley Advice Hub is a model that I think's been a flagship model across County Durham. It currently consists of the Durham Christian Partnership Food Bank, Community Money Advice County Durham, Citizens Advice County Durham, the Universal Credit Help to Claim Service, the Advice in County Durham Energy Specialist and Durham Welfare Rights Service, operating under one roof, which currently operates from the venue in Stanley. Can we move on to the next slide, please? What I wanted to do was give a little bit of a snapshot of where we were back in 2018. So it's a 10-month period, but I wanted you to look at what we had then and where we are now. So if you look at the figures from 2018 to 2019 compared to March 2020 to December 2020, which is the COVID, where we've had the COVID impact, as you can see, the number of clients have dropped off. This isn't just in Stanley, this is a county-wide you know, across the county, there's been a vast amount of drop off with clients asking for support. And I think a lot of this has been to do with, so what I want to do is kind of look at the numbers. So if you can see that obviously the overall number of clients have dropped, the debt advice support has dropped an awful lot, but that's to do with a lot of the government initiatives. So for example, evictions have been paused, there's been sanctions have been ceased by the DWP, overdrafts have been not collected. So there's been a lot of government initiatives that have stopped people asking for that support. However, if you look at the debt managed compared to that period to the current period, we're still below what it was, but if you see, there is still a lot of people that's accessing debt advice and support, and the financial gains for that period at present is really increased substantially. In terms of food bank vouchers, that has dropped, but we've also had a lot of differences in terms of COVID recovery groups have set up who've been given support by the government and the local authority. We've also had other support. For example, there's been Packed House who's been doing a lot of initiatives as well. And the fuel vouchers, that there's been a big reduction in that as well, because a lot of the fuel suppliers have been given support by giving, you know, fuel vouchers direct credit direct to people. Can we move on to the next one? So what difference has COVID made? I think there's been a lot of change over the last 10 months. There's been a change in terms of collaboration. So for example, we've seen Durham Christian Partnership Food Bank and Packed House working in collaboration, operating from the Civic Centre. So there's a lot of relationships developed across Stanley. As I've just referred to, there's been a lot of government initiatives. So because there's been a pause on a lot of recovery, people have not approached people for advice because they've had financial incentives. As I mentioned, there's a lot of COVID mutual aid groups have formed and supported individuals. And I think the demand has really changed. If we can move on to the next slide, please. In terms of how COVID has changed advice delivery, it's changed it dramatically, and I think nobody would have foreseen that the last 10 months would have changed so much. So in terms of face-to-face advice, most advice services have actually ceased face-to-face services. A lot of volunteers who've been volunteering for community services have actually been shielding, so they haven't been operating. Most organisations are now working from home and are actually carrying out a lot of the things digitally now. And I think we've got to look at is that the community is at the heart of what people need. Move on to the next slide. So what I wanted to touch on, and obviously I'm going to ask if anybody's got any questions, is how will this look in the future? How do we shape the future delivery? What I would like to see is that we could do some form of consultation moving forward after the elections. So consult with residents about how they want to access advice services, how it looks, because I think there's an opportunity to give a further reach, maybe look at working from various community centres. There's an awful lot of change happened in the county and the country, and I think it's an opportunity for us to shape advice services moving forward. And that's me. Has anybody got any questions for me? I'm sure they do.
Thank you very much for that, Sam.
Welcome.
Has anyone got any questions? Councillor Paul Marshall.
Thanks, Carol. I just wanted to say a massive thank you to Sam and the team who've worked throughout the pandemic. In particular, in the early days, and a lot of people do not know this, we had a daily conference call that I hosted with all of the advice partners, Packed House, and Sam was integral to that work in mobilising everybody to make sure that we could respond and support the residents across Stanley. And I just wanted to say a massive thanks to Sam for everything she did personally, going above and beyond what we would normally expect of someone in her role. So massive thanks for that. I just wanted to make 2 points really. The first one is around the review that the Durham County Council are currently doing into advice services, where I know they're looking very closely at the model that we've developed here in Stanley, and looking at how they can try and use that as best practice to commission work a lot broader. If you remember back at the beginning, we were able to commission an enhanced service across a range of different providers in Stanley at a much reduced cost when we did this, and I think it's been brilliant to see that work evolve. And I guess we're going to be having further discussions over the coming 12 months or so around how that potentially is going to be changed and developed and improved in the future as well. The second point I want to make, Chair, and then I'll shut up, was just around the importance of face-to-face contact. And I think for me, I think part of the reason, well, the biggest reason why we haven't had as much take up for these services, I think, like Sam's outlined, is because of the other support that's been available and the fact that some of the sanctions and other things that people have previously had that have been relaxed a little bit. But I do think that as soon as it's safe to, we need to get back to providing face-to-face services, because a lot of people, including some of our most vulnerable people, I think really struggle to deal with things over electronic means and over the telephone. So, I mean, I look forward to working with Sam and the Advice Partnership to develop lessons learned from COVID and look at how we can improve this. But I do think face-to-face services are vitally important. Just one thing to throw on the back of this, I can confirm that thanks to some of the discussions that we've been having with Durham County Council, the contract that Durham County Council are going to provide in the future, I think there's a review that's ongoing, but I fully expect the outcome of that review to lead to further provisions in Stanley. So I think as a council, we need to position ourselves to make sure that any services we're commissioning are enhanced services above and beyond what the County Council provide. But I think that's fantastic news that the County Council are going to be subsidising the CAB and the Advice Partnership work in Stanley on top of what we provide. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Con, for that. Councillor Les Timby.
Thanks, Chair. Sam, thanks for a really comprehensive report. Going forward, after the lockdown restrictions are all lifted, I presume you'll be expecting your workload to increase massively, because obviously, like you've said, the evictions, debt recovery have all been put on hold. Obviously, you'll be planning for that, but are you expecting a big, massive spike for the advice services, basically?
Absolutely, Les. I think that we're expecting the floodgates to open. I think that what's happened is there's been an awful lot of government initiatives, and they are actually going to start turning the tap off quite shortly. So, for example, the pause on evictions for certain things. So for rentaries and antisocial behaviour, I believe, they're starting those evictions again. Although there's a court process, you will start seeing that people will start getting evicted. Council tax recovery has been put on hold from Durham County Council. I think it's been sort of softly, but that recovery's now started again. I know there's a couple of incentives that are coming up. So there's a new incentive that's going to be, so I know that our debt advice provider and Citizens Advice will obviously be included in this, but for every person who accesses FCA regulated debt advice, there's going to be a new incentive called Breathing Space, which comes into force on the 4th of May, which gives everybody a 60-day breathing space from creditors actually collecting money. So that'll be a welcome news for people, but they have to access those FCA regulated services, which obviously Citizens Advice and the County Durham Money Advice do deliver on. And also the DRO insolvency are looking at increasing the rate of debt relief orders from £20,000 to £30,000. So I think that there's an awful lot of people will start seeking advice on how they can pursue that insolvency option. But also in terms of the DWP, they've kind of lifted cease sanctions, but that's going to be lifted, and a lot of the compliance, which they haven't been sort of pushing, is going to start being lifted. So you're going to start seeing more pressure for people to start to look for work. So I think there's an awful lot of things that are going to happen very shortly, and I think that advice services, the demand's going to be really high. Once the DWP and all the relevant government organisations start lifting those measures, I think that people will, the floodgates are about to open, I think, Liz. So.
Thanks very much, Sam.
You're welcome.
Thanks for your question, Liz. Councillor Jeanette Stevenson.
Hi, Sam.
Hi.
Thanks very much for that. I really welcome the fact that our Stanley Advice Partnership and our approach as a model is going to hopefully be used across the county, because I do think bringing all of those services together in the one-stop shop approach is really important. I really also welcome the consultation side of things, and also, if there is any potential to be had with regards to looking at a model where we take that Stanley model and filter it downwards, rather than outwards, so that we're starting to look at outreach in our local communities. I think that would be really well received. And this is something that we've had discussion at the AAP about as well, so it might be useful to link in with Daniel O'Brien if you aren't already doing so. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Jeanette. I think it's really relevant what you've said, Jeanette. I think that particularly with the sort of digital element of what's been happening, I think there's a real opportunity to far reach the community. So like you say, within community centres, I think there's an awful lot of community centres where people are, engaging with their local centres, who trust the local centres. And, if we can reach those centres, whether it be by face-to-face, digital means, we're operating a project with an AAP over in East Durham, where we're going to be based in community centres and having a digital face-to-face service. So I think there's a real opportunity to kind of reach those who are most hard hit, but obviously also be right within the heart of the community.
Very good. Great to hear, Sam. Has anybody else got any questions before Sam goes? No? Can I just thank you very much? Oh, sorry, Councillor Mark Davidson.
Thanks, Carol. I wasn't gonna speak on this one, but just what Sam saying, she's going to do the virtual face-to-face. That's something that we used to do with Durham County Council back in, I don't know what it was, 2006 or something, 2006 to 2008, with the video conferencing thing we used to have. We used to be part of that project at Craghead, and people were reluctant to go on it at the time, let's say, but once they did get on it, they got really good outcomes out of it, and it was something that worked really well, in my opinion. It was just I had to sort of handcuff them at the desk and stick the thing on, or make the appointment for them and tell them they were definitely turning up. But I don't think I think people have got more used to it now. That was sort of, I don't know, in the first decade of email, let's say, and now it's now things are more commonplace. So I think that if you've got one or two people in the community that you can get on there, and then they can find out that it worked for them, and I think that'll snowball as well. I think that's a good option. It's just initially it'll be hard, but after that I think you'll get more people to come on and use it. And it was really good the last time, because we didn't have CAB, but we had something similar, whatever the county council.
I think you had welfare rights, possibly, because I know that I was speaking to someone in welfare rights and they said they did something similar. Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. I think it's something that we've kind of had forced upon us in the last 10 months. So we've all kind of had to go with the digital means, but I think also in terms of agencies' resources, you can see a lot more individuals if you do it digitally. So I think there's an opportunity to kind of have more reach with more resources, if you like. But I think it's just being open to it, isn't it, and kind of getting buy-in from the public. And but I think, Councillor Carl Marshall was absolutely right. There's always going to be an element of people who are really vulnerable, who need that face-to-face service. So it's getting a happy medium, isn't it? A balance to support as many people as we can within Stanley. So
yeah, but I think just to conclude this bit, I'll have a little poke at Carol as always. If you do it in the community centres, this is the type of person. Carol's the type of person where she wouldn't be confident at doing it in the house, but she'd be confident if she came down to the community centre and somebody was sort of holding her hand to do it. Sorry, no. Carol, but it's true, Katie.
I agree. I agree with you, Mark.
I just think that's how it works. That you've got somebody that you trust to sort of helping you with the IT part, and you're able to access the services that way. So it can also be applicable to those people, Carl says, where they wouldn't be comfortable with it. The community centre could really help them, I think, on that respect.
Okay. Thank you for that, Mark. Thank you once again, Sam. I'll look forward to the consultation. Okay. And hopefully you'll be able to come back and give us an update on what's happening at a later date.
Lovely. Thank you very much for inviting me, Chair. Thank you. Okay, now, bye.
Thank you. Bye. We'll move on to item 9, which is the energy efficiency. And I'll hand over to James for this.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, members, we have now got a talk from Jerry Nicell, who's the National Sales Manager, and Brian Glendenning, who is the CEO of Engineera Limited. I think they are going to put on a presentation, so if members could just bear with us for a few minutes while I get set there.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll start. Good evening, James. Good evening, Madam Mayor. Members, thanks for the opportunity to join you this evening. I'll introduce you first to our chairman, Brian Glendenning, who will present an introduction to the Engineera Renewables Group. Brian, over to you.
Thanks, Jerry. Good evening, all. Madam Chair. I'm just waiting for my presentation to load here. I do know some of the people on the council already, so hopefully I'm not going to be telling you something you've already seen before. But this is on a presentation on power purchase agreements, which is what we do by way of funding for solar projects. I know that Jerry's been working closely with James on the town hall, on the heating side particularly, and Jerry's going to mention just after the presentation where we're at with that. But I thought it was important to show you this presentation. There are some quite detailed sections of it, and I'll try and be as quick as I can through that. But it will give you some indication that there's funding available, so where you can get the system, for example, on the town hall roof, which would save you around £6,000 a year on your energy bills, or 20% saving on your existing costs. And that's on a no capex basis. So I'll quickly run through this for you, and we will take it from there. So what we're trying to achieve is to empower businesses and communities to generate their own cleaner and greener and cheaper electricity. And I know we've done something similar down at Craghead with the biomass for Councillor Mark and the guys down there. So in general, who were we? We were incorporated in 2014. And we were what is called in the renewable energy industry an EPC contractor. To us, normal folk, that's a main contractor. For some strange reason, the renewable sector will have a fancy title of EPC, but in reality, it is a main contractor where we manage and control all the working platforms from initial design right through installation, finance and all the maintenance programs for the period of the contract, which could be up to 25 years. A little bit about our successes to date. Obviously, we've been going at it since 2014, and in 2019, I'll go straight on to the big one. We were the UK Installer of the Year within the energy efficiency arena, winning that coveted award at the Birmingham Awards. And last year, just before lockdown, we did actually win the regional awards again in Durham for the North East. Here are just some of the awards we've won, which are the annual awards. We did some really good work with Newcastle City Council, where we installed on top of the Civic Centre and on Manners Car Park. So we did the roof of Manners Car Park, taking out the car parking spaces and filled that with solar panels. And that makes the City Council around about £250,000 a year. It was just before they took off the feed-in tariff, so obviously the benefit from the feed-in tariff from the government. I guess we're looking at, and one of the things that we're all looking at these days is the challenges facing both businesses and communities at large. And one of the biggest challenges that the government are tasking all of us with now is the decarbonisation. And one of the biggest issues for us is how can we help communities like yourselves to maximise their savings on their carbon and on their energy costs, which are, as you all know, are ever increasing. So really we're looking at a programme, and we could happily look at all of the buildings in Stanley and do something on a power purchase agreement across all of your buildings and link that into one package, if you like, where you would be seeing average of a 20% saving on your energy costs with no capital outlay at all. And that's funded over a long period, about 20 or 25 years. But again, I can add and give a bit more detail on that if you so desire. Obviously, touching on the environmental policy, obviously we're looking at a net zero target. This is going to be a challenge for all the communities, not just in the northeast, but I think we're probably one of the more challenged areas of the UK. But again, what we're looking at from this power purchase agreement offering would give a clear indication of how much we can save each of the local authorities and all their buildings by looking at this type of offering we've got with the power purchase agreement. Just some figures for you. The energy targets on the, as you can see here, they've got up 57% since the 1990 figures. So going somewhere to increasing and improving what we're supposed to be doing, but still a long way to go at another 43% to hit target. The inflation of energy inflation costs, incredibly, they're up over 70% since 2007. So the last 13 years, we've got a 70% increase in energy costs. And we're looking at the moment, around about a 9% increase per annum going forward over the next 10 years. So 9% per annum average increase, which is incredible when you look at the cost we're paying today. We're going to be paying 25 to 30 pence per kilowatt for our energy, which is a phenomenal rate. Getting onto the power purchase agreement now, and this is exactly what we look at and what we provide. And it's really just give you an overview of what the power purchase agreement is. It's obviously to help local authorities, community buildings and communities in their entirety to reduce their carbon footprint and their energy costs. We do that by offering a power purchase agreement, which is a financial model based on an annual saving. So I'll give you a basic example for that. Say you're paying £1,000 per year for your energy costs, and I wish it was only that much. We would give you an immediate saving of 20%, which would say you're only paying £800 a year, and the finance company get their money back over the long term of 20 or 25 years over that little 20% saving. So they've obviously got within that percentage, they've got their return on their investment. What do we offer as a product? Obviously, rooftop solar is our main commercial offering. We do offer ground-mounted solar, solar carports, and we also offer, which Jerry might touch on shortly, ground source, combined heating and power, air source, standard commercial boilers, and EV charging are just a few of the products that we will offer the local authority in today's market. Funding options that are available, as I mentioned, we've got the power purchase agreement. I've mentioned this a number of times, but some organisations still want to purchase the systems outright because that, if they have the finance available, is the best way to do it. But there are other finance options available, and we are talking to likes of Salex about funding options for yourselves as well. On the outright purchase, obviously, as we mentioned, your return on investment would be a lot higher because obviously you would own the asset, and it's round about a 7 to 10 year payback when you purchase a system. unfortunately for us at the moment, not many of the local authorities have got a lot of cash to spend, so we're generally looking at either a finance or the free option on the power purchase agreement. Here are just some quick designs. This is a system we did on a leisure centre in Lancashire, and you'll see this is the design we use. So on the left-hand side is the finished drone footage of the building, and on the right-hand side is the original design of the system. And we use a system called PV Sol, which is a European wide recognised as #1 in the design of systems in the renewable sector. Again, just looking at some of the information on the project management sheet we would provide. So when we get a process or a quotation through, we would fully design all of the systems based on the output of the energy from the building. So we will look at the building's energy cost, and we would map the energy cost with the system size to maximise the savings for the client. And a quick look at the life cycle of the process. So, as I mentioned before, as an EPC, we look at all the technology that would be installed on the system or on the building. So that's done at the initial design stage. We then would do the installation. We do all the in-house commissioning. We do all the in-house monitoring systems, and have a 24-hour monitoring system that we put on every system that we install, which gives obviously peace of mind to the client. And we do full 24-hour, 365-day maintenance program, and we do all the O&M and repairs are all based and built into the program, so they're all built into the cost of the offering. Yeah, just some of the guys that we're working with from a manufacturer's point of view, and some clients that we work with already, and you'll see Durham are on that list. We have our own green bond, so we have we're an investment bond which is listed on Frankfurt and GEMS, which is the Dublin Exchange, and that's listed and is for investment by local authority. We've actually got a number of local authority pension investments in this already, and it's a really nice way for them to invest in their own buildings. They get a 7% return on their investment, which is in today's market a good return, and allows them to pick and choose which buildings they want to do and which ones they want to invest in with their own cash, get the power purchase agreement benefits, and of course then have a 7% return. And these are just some projects that we've completed already, and if you want to have a look at it, these are all drone footage, so you can see the imagery as the drone flies around the sites. Those are on YouTube, and our YouTube channel is there for everyone to see. And that from me is it, guys. Thanks very much. Is there any questions before I pass on to Jerry?
Thank you very much for that, Brian. Has anyone got any questions? Councillor Mark Davidson.
Well, I think Brian can guess what I'm going to say here. You had your past partners on, but there wasn't a logo for Craggy Village Hall on. What's going on, Brian? There should have been a one on there.
Well, I shall make sure it's on the next time.
Thank you.
Has anyone else got any questions? No hands are showing. Oh, sorry, Councillor Jeanette Stevenson.
Hi, Brian. Thanks for that. I just wondered, for example, the council own a number of buildings, but they're not all grouped together, but they're in various places throughout the town. Does that make a difference?
Not at all.
Can you group that together as a community?
Yes, would very much be interested in doing that, to be honest, because I know that James had mentioned you've got 5 or 6 buildings throughout the area, and we would be happy to look at all of those and group them together for you. Mm. It's a nice way when you've got smaller and larger buildings to do that, because quite often the smaller buildings get left out, but we'd be happy to put those together as a package.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jeanette. Anyone else got any questions? No, we'll move on then. Is Jerry got something? Are you coming in now, Jerry?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'll jump in. If you can just unshare your screen for a moment, that would be great. So basically, the first building that we looked at within the Stanley portfolio was the Civic Hall. And alongside James, we reached out for what we call SALEX decarbonisation funding. Excuse me. We spent a number of months working on a model to fully future-proof the Civic Hall, looking at renewable heating, looking at solar, looking at mechanical heat recovery systems, etc. And we got an application that was approved by SALEX as a concept. Unfortunately, the SALEX funding was vastly oversubscribed. So that was oversubscribed in November, even though the application didn't go in until January, sorry. So it was disappointing, but what we learned during that process was a full understanding of the Civic Hall. I would view the Civic Hall main Achilles heel as a starting point as the current heating system. You have a cascade of 5 boilers, which was pretty much condemned in 2015. 3 of those boilers currently don't work, and the system at a maximum is operating at around 65% efficiency. So what we're doing at the moment, as Brian stated, is we're taking another overview of the facility. If we start briefly with the heating, so the gas consumption of Stanley Civic Hall is around 500,000 kilowatt hours per year, operating at an efficiency of 65%, with an estimated annual running cost of £40,000. What we would propose initially would be to remove that existing heating system, replace the 5 current boilers with 4 new 80 kilowatt commercial boilers, and a full control mechanism behind that. So giving James and the team much more control of the facility, that would create savings of just over £10,000 per annum, and on a cost basis of just under 40k. Therefore, the payback would be just under 4 years, and that would future-proof the building for the next sort of 10 or 15 years on the heating front. As Brian mentioned, we also have modelled the solar on the Civic Hall. I'll just let you see that briefly, which is here. So we've modelled a solar facility of 67 kilowatt on the building, given an excellent return on investment. That's the numbers basically, just to give you producing an annual return on investment of just over 22%, with a payback period over by year 6. Obviously, all of these systems that we would propose on the facility would massively help with the maintenance of the facility, reducing the electricity consumption by a minimum of 20% and reducing the heating consumption by a minimum of 25%. And what we could do to protect your capital at this stage is wrap these projects, perhaps this initial project of the heating and the solar, wrap it into one power purchase agreement. So there's no great capital investment for the council, but we're future-proofing the facility, reducing the costs, and then we can take this model across the whole portfolio, either on as Brian said, on an individual basis or as a complete portfolio, and wrap it into one offering. Obviously, subject to your feedback and your thoughts. We're more than happy to continue engaging with James over the coming weeks and months and put forward several proposals. But again, just to reiterate, on the short term, I think the real priority for Stanley Civic Hall is to address the heating system. Again, thank you for the opportunity this evening. more than happy to take any direct questions on Stanley Civic Hall.
Thank you very much for that, Jerry. Has anybody got any questions they would like to ask? No? You're getting off lightly there, Jerry. Oh, Councillor Jeanette Stevenson.
It's not really a question, it's more of a comment that, you know, it's really good to see that all brought together, but I do think that obviously a commitment, a large financial commitment that we would have to consider, you know, going forward.
Thank you, Jeanette. Councillor Mark Davidson.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the presentation, Jerry, and the little bit of statistics in it. I love a bit of statistics. I think that's a bit like Jeanette said, really, that it's something that I think we're probably all known needs doing, if you know what I mean. And the boilers need to be the priority because one, it's costing us a lot of money, and two, they're probably older than everybody in the room, you know what I mean? So if we can, we need to have a look at that, but we'll need to have a look at to find out how we can finance it and what will be the best way to do it. So it's probably going to take a bit of more work between yourself and James to find out sort of how we could do it, and a bit more exploration really. But if we cannot have the renewables, then it sounds like this might be the next best option, if you know what I mean. I know that I got a thing the other day that that nearly made us collapse because I read it wrong, where it said that the RHI was stopping, but it's for new applications, isn't it? Not old applications. Like I've got a crackhead, so I thought they're stopping me RHI when they weren't. So that moves the goalposts for the renewables. I know that, but it's just obviously we know we need to do something. It's just trying to make a decision. What's the most efficient thing to do with the money to make sure that we make the most benefit and it makes it affordable as well. I think that's the only thing for me. Just need to marry the two up, if you know what I mean. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, the commercial RHI ceases in its current form on the 31st of March. So unfortunately, we've missed any opportunity to look at commercial RHI. Domestic RHI continues until first quarter May 2022. So in terms of housing, social housing, etc., there's still many opportunities that we're exploring. Regards the renewable solution, the renewable solution for Stanley would be extremely expensive, and the savings when you're pitching against mains gas, which at the moment is cheap, unfortunately, the savings don't stack up. It would do over a 25 to 30 year period. Achieving funding for that would add cost to your outgoings, which we're not here to try and deliver that. We're here to try and save money, future-proof as best we can. And Jeanette, in terms of the capital outlay, the whole purpose of having the Engenera Green Bond, which is funded, as Brian rightly said, by European investment, by local authorities and by pension funds, is to provide that capital. What we then do with that is deploy that, and the savings model, which you ultimately benefit from, are what funds the project. So any proposals that Brian, myself, the team and James work on will be on the basis of non-capital from yourselves. We will always look for mechanisms to fund that, so the council is saving money from day one rather than increasing costs.
Councillor Mark Davidson, is that a new hand or a old hand?
Yeah, it's a new hand. Thanks, Chair. I'll just be quick this time and try not to waffle on, but I think that that there's a couple of things on that. If it costs 40 grand to put the boilers in and you save 10 grand a year, why, that's a sort of, I don't know what you call it, like investor save type of thing. So at that cost, that might be something that James could get inserted into the 22-23 budget or something like that to try and like 2022-23 to try and do that, if you know what I mean. That could be something that could happen. And also, I forgot to say that when I was on the last time, just thanks to yourself, Jerry, and to the rest of the team for working with James, because I know he did get quite frustrated with the fact that he was contacting various so-called reputable companies who were in the same field as yourself, who didn't want to entertain him because there wasn't an immediate sort of job to do, if you know what I mean. There wasn't like, yes, I've got the money and I want to do this. Will you? So I'd just like to say thanks for working with James when there wasn't, when the funding was there, but we weren't certain to get it, if you know what I mean, because I think that's an important thing. Thank you.
Mark, just on that, we work with blue chip corporations up and down the country and looking at expanding into Europe and Ireland, but our roots are in the Northeast, and anything in general we'd like to offer that to the Northeast community first where possible. And it's just a matter of engaging, keeping an open mind. From a local authority point of view, people are always concerned about the short-term financial impact, where what we try and deliver is we're bringing an open mind to the table that without putting in the time and effort, we're never going to be able to engage with people like James and build proposals that are fit for purpose, showing a clear understanding of the financial situation in the local authority. So we're here to continue the journey with you, and look forward to working with you all over the coming weeks and months.
Thank you. It's lovely to hear that, Jerry. Thank you very much for that. Has anyone got any more questions? No. Thank you once again, and I'm sure we will be in touch to forward discussions. Thank you very much. And we'll move on to item 10 on the agenda, which is the COVID-19 grants update.
Hello.
Alan Tubman, hello. Over to you, Alan Tubman.
Hello, buddy. Right. Just everybody's obviously got the report, so I'll just be there's a lot for people to digest, and the other bits I'll just be brief with this, if you don't mind. Obviously, everybody's aware that we set up the grants back in last March, and these were awarded to the community groups in April. And there was two different types of grants, or two types of groups. There was the overall service providers, and there was the community venues, the community anchor buildings that we also did in two levels. I reported back to council back end of last year about this grant process, and said I would do a follow-up report on the feedback once we got all the feedback and monitoring reports back in. I've got them all back in now, so I've had an opportunity to pull all that together and to produce this report for you today. As you know, there was a total of £63,000 to be spent to be granted to people. Out of that I've itemised out in the two sections. I mean, in section 2 there, we've got the overview, how it was spent overall. I have feedback of all the groups itemised now, how people spent the money. What I've done is I've categorised that down into bands, if you like, which is obviously running costs, core-related expenditure, essential works, and other. In section 2 gives you the overview. Section 3 gives you the cross-town support services, which was the packed house sharing just for women. I mean, as you can see from that, they spent the majority of their money on the running costs and COVID-related, which is expected. When you look in section 3.2, the community groups and community anchor buildings, you can see there's a slight difference in how that money was spent. That money was spent there on running costs COVID-related, but it also brought in things like essential works and other expenditures, which the groups felt were necessary to help them basically survive through the pandemic to date. Also, as part of this report, I've took the opportunity just to put a little bit of selective feedback from some of the groups in there. Everybody filled a monitoring and feedback form in. I've just picked some out at random. Obviously, the activity down Anfield Plain, Cricket Club, Beamish Football, Cragged Village Hall. They're all listed there, and I've taken quotes directly out of the feedback that they've put in. I mean, in summary, as I say, I think it's when looking at the group, looking at where the expenditure is being made, you can see that there was a definite difference between the ones that were given for the overall support and the ones that were given for the for supporting the venues and things like that. Other than that, the information's there for people. I've broken it down. I've also attached an appendix to that, which gives more detail on the individual groups and what they've submitted back to me. Really, it's just for members' information. We said we'd get back to members with this to show this is being spent. If anybody's got any questions, I'll happily take them. Otherwise, I'm happy to for members to note the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Alan. Does anyone have any questions? Councillor Carl Marshall.
Thanks, Chair. Just to thank Alan for this report. Clearly, at the time when this money was given out, the Town Council acted before any other public body, or certainly before government got their act together. And I know that the reassurance, certainly from the groups that are represented on, and I sit on quite a number of those groups that were lucky enough to receive support, was really appreciated. And in fact, at the time, it was used to resource things like PPE. And some of them used it to fund core costs when other funders weren't even considering providing support for that. So I just think it's worth acknowledging that at a time when the community needed us, we stood shoulder to shoulder with them so they could support our residents right across the piece. And we've all seen the benefits of Packed House, Just Women, the work that's been done up at Anfield Plain Community Centre. And I think we should put on record our thanks to all of the groups, as we have done before, for everything that they have done and continue to do to support our communities.
Totally agree, Carl. Thank you very much. Councillor Jeanette Stevenson.
Thanks, Alan. This is a really good report. I'm really pleased to see all of the groups that have been helped by Stanley Town Council. When we did this at the beginning of all of the COVID, I don't think we could understand exactly just how much this meant to the community groups that it did help. And, I'm looking specifically at my own area, the Anfield Plain Community Centre. Thank you for this funding. We had no income whatsoever from our usual activities. And that is just one place where, without this money, they probably wouldn't have been able to close to open the doors, rather. They would have had to close them. And, being involved in the project that was run from there, myself personally, when I hear when you're delivering shopping and getting prescriptions for people, exactly just how much it's meant to them, that project running from there couldn't have taken place without the money that we put in the first place to keep the doors open. So fantastic is all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeanette. Councillor Mark Davidson.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to come in and add a little bit of something, really. I think that what we did was really good when we did it, but I think that following on from that, what we continued to do was probably even better, really. Carl touched a little bit on it. We had Packed House here. One of our neighbourhood wardens, where we only had one at the time, got very involved in the thing. We had Alan Tubman, even though he's sitting there trying to look. Alan Tubman had was having those meetings that Carl was on about before, those daily meetings with the advice services, making sure that people got access advice. He was involved in all that. So just well done to all our staff as well, really. I don't think that's touched on the report, but I think that our staff did fantastic. The volunteers in Stanley have done fantastic, and we just need to recognise that, we threw a little bit of money at them, but they ran with it and made it a success, really. So they maybe couldn't have done it without us, but we definitely couldn't have done it without them. So just well done, everybody.
Totally agree, Mark. Anyone else got any questions? No. Well, thank you for that, Alan. That would note the report. Thank you. We will move on to item 11, which is the audit report. Can I hand over to Anne?
Thank you, Chair.
Please? Thank you.
Good evening, councillors. I'm Barry, Finance Officer. Hopefully you've had a chance to have a look at the audit report recently carried out by our internal auditor, Gordon Fletcher. It was pleasing to see that we got full assurance in 2 areas, but disappointing that we only received substantial assurance in the payroll audit. This was down to a minor issue around the timesheets and how we record and toil. You may remember it was originally raised over a year ago where there was some concerns about making sure we were recording our time to ensure we were receiving our toil. So following that, we did introduce a timesheet which the officers have been completing, and the concerns that Gordon raised were around authorisation of the report. Basically, he felt that anybody could sign off the spreadsheet. I kind of felt the solution that we put in was acceptable because the timesheets, the linked timesheets, were sent direct to the manager for authorisation. So there was always a kind of an audit trail, you know, to say that that manager had looked at it. But having said that, we are looking at James Black's looking at some kind of further electronic means of recording our time to kind of give Gordon some assurance that you know, anybody can't fill that area in. When the report was represented at Finance and General Purpose, we had a couple of concerns raised at the time regarding the wording of the auditor's report, where he'd mentioned human resources instead of payroll. That has been fed back to Gordon, and he was happy for the report to be amended. I'm happy to take any further comments or observations that anybody has on this issue.
Does anyone want to speak on this? No. Thank you very much for that, Anne. Oh, sorry, Councillor Les Timby's got his hand up.
Les, you're on mute.
Right. Anne, thanks for what I reported at Finance, and you've went back to the auditor and he's amended the report. So I'm happy with that, and I'm just happy to note the report. I think, yeah, I hope we get all 3 next time, mine. Don't, you know. So I'm happy to, you know, for the amendment to be done and satisfied and ordered.
Thank you.
Thank you, Les. And we'll move on to item 12, which is grant funding, and that's you again, Anne.
Right. Yes, so hopefully you've had a chance to look at this grant funding report, which sets out how much we've received to date in grant funding and what we're projected to receive up until the year end. So hopefully that'll give give everybody a little bit of reassurance that we are receiving some money to net off against our shortfall in income as a result of being closed for the pandemic. So basically at the top it sets out the total amount was received to date of 43,000, and that I'm projecting that we'll receive up to 66,000 by the end of the year. And then I've broken it down so you can see where that money comes from. Some of it's from furloughed staff, Some of it's from one-off payments, and I can't remember what the third one was. Back to the report. So yes, so we've got the furlough, the one-off payments, some grant towards our COVID response newsletter, and our local restriction support grant. So any questions on that?
Anyone got any questions? Les, is that an old hand or a new hand? Old hand. Any questions? Councillor Davidson?
Not a question really, Chair, but if nobody has any questions, I suggest that we note the report, please.
Thank you. We'll move on now. We've noted the report to where am I at? Item 13, which is neighbourhood wardens contracts.
Thank you,
I'll
Chair.
hand over to James.
Two forward, my apologies. Chair, obviously, Councillor Joan Nicholson had disclosed a pecuniary interest in this issue, so unfortunately she will be asked to leave the meeting at this point, but I will invite her back in following the end of this this agenda item, if that's
Right,
okay, Councillor Nicholson. I'll just confirm. Oh, left. Yep, that's absolutely fine. Thank you very much, Chair. The neighbourhood wardens contract, item 13, as outlined in the report, it's outlined a proposal for the continuation of the neighbourhood wardens service that is due to end on the 31st of March 2021. So the current contract is due to expire following the conclusion of a 3-year agreement, 2018, 2019 and 2020. So from 2.3, I've outlined the current contract specification, including the tasking and purpose of the neighbourhood wardens. And also in 2.4, the specification referring to the outcomes of the neighbourhood warden service. In point 3 of the report, as you can see, is some statistics for 1920 and 1819. Unfortunately, the 2021 statistics at the point of the report were not available, but they will be circulated to all members following when it is available. Moving down to 3.5, there is some elements from the operations manager, James, who currently provides line management and tasking for the neighbourhood warden service, as well as the contract monitoring. James has put together some good reference points with regards to the neighbourhood wardens, what's been going on, and how he personally feels the neighbourhood wardens contract adheres to its contract. In point 4 is the proposal, including there is some amendments to this report from the original that went to finance, of which on top of the costs that are outlined in 4.2 is contingency costs of £2,500 to be made available, and contingency costs would only be incurred should equipment for the neighbourhood wardens need to be replaced. So such contingency costs are uniform, stab-proof vests and radio equipment. Also, since January 2021, the council has paid for an additional vehicle for the neighbourhood wardens at a cost of £250 per month, in line with the Durham County Council COVID-19 service risk assessment. Should such risk continue to be high, a contingency amount of £3,000 would need to be made available. So the council has allocated a budget of £76,000 for the cost of the neighbourhood wardens for 21-22. Therefore, to continue the service, the total cost would be £75,670, of which £5,500 would be held as a contingency for 21-22. This would rise to £78,602, again with the same contingency for 22-23 and 23-24. So the recommendation from Finance and General Purposes is to renew the contract with Durham County Council for the provision of neighbourhood wardens for a further 3 years, with a full specification review undertaken after the 2nd year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Questions. Councillor David Marshall, you have your hand up.
Yes, thanks, Madam Mayor. David Marshall, Crackhead, and Deputy Mayor. Just bear with me because, as you all probably aware, I've had COVID and I'm just recovering from it. So I'm not, my thought processes, my hearing's very bad. That's why I've got the headphones on. And but what I would say on this is, in the past, when the Downside Independents had control of this council, they chose to discontinue providing this service to the public. As a result, Labour Party members feared that there would be an increase in crime and disorder, and this proved it did happen. At the last elections, we made 9 pledges to the public. I would respectfully remind this council that one of these was, I quote, tackle environmental crime and issues by reinstating a neighbourhood warden service across the area. The majority of the public decided to support the Labour Party at that council elections, and we subsequently reintroduced the wardens, and they have been very effective. Reports provided by the wardens indicate they continue to be needed. Prevention is better than cure. I do believe that we allocate the money to provide this service in the budget when we set it this year. I don't think I'm wrong on that. So the money's already there. So I would move that we accept the report and they do a great job and really make a difference to Stanley. It is an enhancement of a service, and I'm pleased they're there, and I'm pleased for the work that they're doing. So thanks very much for allowing me to speak, Chairman.
Thank you for that, Councillor Marshall. Councillor Les Timby.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. I just totally agree with everything that David said. We brought this in at the start of this term on the basis of enhancing the service that the neighbourhood wardens already did from the county, and to work alongside them. They're definitely working alongside Durham County. They've got a joined up approach. They're tackling all the environmental crimes, whichever way, fly tipping, dog fouling, being visible, which I think is one of the major points. And our wardens are going into schools and educating them. And I think it's a service Stanley Town Council needs to retain for as long as possible. So as David's proposed it, I would gladly second the recommendation from Finance and General Purposes Committee to renew the contract with Durham County Council for the provision of the neighbourhood wardens for a further 3 years, and a full specification review undertaken after the second year.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Timby. We've had a proposal, we've had it seconded. We have to now go to a recorded vote. Is that right, James?
It is, Madam Mayor. If you're okay for me to progress with the recorded vote.
Go ahead.
Fantastic. So the recommendation as per the report and is to approve the recommendation for Finance and General Purposes Committee to renew the contract with Durham County Council for the provision of neighbourhood wardens for a further 3 years, with a full specification review undertaken after the second year. Councillor Gordon Binney.
For.
Oh, sorry, my apologies. Councillor Helen Clark has had to leave the meeting earlier. Councillor Joyce Clark.
For.
Councillor Alex Clegg.
For.
Councillor Mark Davidson.
For.
Councillor Carol Hampson.
For.
Councillor James Kane.
For.
Councillor Carl Marshall.
For.
Councillor David Marshall.
For.
Councillor Joe McMahon.
For.
Councillor Ballot-Nair.
For.
Councillor Jack Pallas.
Agree.
Councillor Jeanette Stevenson.
4.
Councillor Les Timby.
4.
Councillor David Tully.
Abstain.
Councillor Joanne Tully.
Sorry, abstain.
And has Councillor George Wilkinson joined us, or is he still not? No, he's still not here. Right. Chair, that is 13-4 and 2 abstentions, so that motion has passed.
Thank you. We'll move on now to item 14, which is the decarbonisation project, attachment G, and I'll hand over to James for this, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will briefly go over this. Unfortunately, this document was put together for finance and general purposes at a time when we weren't aware of the outcome of the decarbonisation project. Obviously, there's been...
James, you need to invite Councillor Nicholson to come back into the meeting.
Apologies. Thank you very much, Councillor Mark Davidson. I'll just put her back in. Oh, there we go. My apologies there, Councillor John Nicholson. I'd only just started the process. So just to go back over that, so we are on to item 14, Civic Hall Stanley Energy Efficiency. I'll briefly go over the report because unfortunately at the time when this report was produced, we were unaware of the outcome of the decarbonisation project. Obviously, following the finance and general purposes, we were made aware that we were unsuccessful in our grant claim for monies from this scheme. A number of things have been mentioned tonight from Jerry and from Brian, but it goes into the proposals as per the grant claim, which was significant and are possibly beyond the realms of what's achievable without grant money. So there was a number of parts to the submission, including a heating replacement, replacing the boilers for state-of-the-art air source pumps, replacing the current ventilation system in the theatre, including a building management system, LED lighting, and solar panels. Chair, as you can see, the recommendation to approve the recommendation from Finance and General Purposes has been removed. So it's at my request for members to just note the report.
Thank you very much. I think the report's noted. And we'll move on to item 15.
Oh, sorry, Chair. Councillor Mark Davidson's got his hand up.
Oh, sorry. Councillor Mark Davidson wanted to come in.
Thanks, Carol. I think that it would be remiss of us not to say, similar to what I said before when the other two guys were here, that thanks to Genera for working with James when there was no certainty that there would be money there, and there wasn't in the end. And thanks to James for working with Genera, building the report up and bringing it to finance and to full council as well, because I think that if we had got the money, it would have been exactly what we were looking for. So it was a good spot that the money was there, and it was a good well, I was going to say a good idea to get the people he got, but I know you tried hard to get other people that was playing from the report. So just well done all round, really. It's just unfortunately we didn't get the money, so we'll have to look at other avenues. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you for that, Councillor Davidson. We'll move on to item 15, which is the Policy Working Group, which is attachment H. And I'll hand over to Alan Tubman to present this.
Hello, I'm back. Hello, thanks, Madam Mayor. It's just really, it's to get these policies approved. I mean, they've been through the Policy Working Group a number of times. They were reviewed by the group. We've then subsequently been to Finance, General Purposes, who also approved these. So it's just for members, for full council approval, really. If there's any questions or any issues, then please let me know. But like I say, they've already been approved by the Policy Group and the Finance Committee. And I'd just like to add at the time that, you know, we did have a lot of work on these. It's been a number of people's been on the group there, and I'd just like to thank everybody for the hard work regards getting all this lot sorted out, because some of these took a bit of bottom out. So thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Councillor Timby, you want to come in?
Yeah, I would just like to thank Alan for chairing that committee. You're right, we've worked hard in getting through I would say majority of the policies that we needed to do. I would say we're now in the review process of reviewing them just on a yearly basis, Alan. I don't think there's any more policies to come up, maybe the odd one, but and thanks to fellow councillors who sat on the group, because we've all worked together, and there's a lot of policies we have been through. So I'm happy just to propose that we accept these, and hope the policy group continues, and it'll be more of a review policy than bringing in new policies. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Councillor Gordon-Binney.
Thanks, Chair. I'd just like to say I'll support Councillor Timby's comments, and I'd also like to add that the working group has worked very hard during the review of the procedures to ensure that they are what I call live documents, which in turn should achieve the stated aim of the members and the officers in delivering good governance by the council. So I think we should accept these policies.
Thank you. Everyone agree? Yeah, plenty of nods. I think that's noted. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item 16, which is the youth consultation, and which is attachment I. The council's asked to consider the report and decide what to do. And I'll hand over to James for this one.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. So members, the report was put together off the back of correspondence received from the County Durham Youth Council on the 5th of February. So the purpose of the report is to review the County Durham Youth Council engagement plan and provide feedback to the nominated officer, which is due by the 26th of February 2021. So the background information in this report is as written, but basically it gives you a bit of information on the County Durham Youth Council being set up to give children and young people a collective vote, a voice that is listened to and acted upon by decision makers. So the review of the County Durham Youth Engagement Plan, it covers a period of 21-22 and was produced following a county-wide consultation held in the months of November, December and January. So consultation was carried out in several ways via an online survey and face-to-face, virtually, via Teams, in groups and individually. It was split into two parts. The first part focused on the young people's views of the council, what's working well, what could be improved, how to engage with young people and how to involve young people in decision making. The second part focused on the young people's views, understanding and the interpretation of the Durham Youth Council's outcomes for young people based on the 5 Every Child Matters outcomes. So they are staying safe, being healthy, enjoying and achieving economic well-being and making a positive contribution. So the plan identifies where Durham County Council and its partnership agencies are working well, whilst identifying where Durham Youth Council would like to be. These include often young children and young people are only asked what they think of current services. This does not provide children and young people the opportunity to work alongside decision makers to develop services. And we would like to be in a position where the voices of children and young people are being listened to and actively acted upon in order to better their lives and futures. I've mentioned in 3.5 a significant part of the plan includes areas of development, including recruitment, incentives, recognising achievement, whilst encouraging young people to contribute and engage. Training, commissioning, communication, input, young people events, young inspectors, and introduce a change in attitudes in the workplace. So the proposals following the report are feedback related to the County Durham Youth Engagement Plan should be provided by the nominated DCC officer by the 26th of February 21, outlining the council's support for the Youth Engagement Plan whilst thanking all young people who have participated in the consultation exercise. The council requests the Finance and General Purposes Committee review how it can further engage with young people through council meetings, service reviews and commissioning, news alerts and events plans. And the council to seek representation from the STARS Youth and Community KIC as its youth provision delivery partner to provide support during engagement and feedback on the results of any findings. So the recommendations are to consider the report and approve the proposal set out in point 4 of the report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Does anyone want to come in? Any questions? Councillor Timby?
Yes, thanks, Madam Mayor. I've got a few points that I've picked out. Where it's the first page of the report, like how many young people from Stanley are in the Durham Youth Council? Does anybody know? Because it would be an interesting fact to find out if there is anybody from the Stanley Town Council area on the Durham Youth Council. Second question that I think we need to pose to this officer who's run this is, how do they become a member of the Durham Youth Council? Is it through nomination, or is it self-nomination, or what? Or is it just you turn up and you're on it? And if there is anybody from, any young people from Stanley on the Youth Council, I think it's right and proper that we invite them to a future Stanley Town Council meeting to give her a talk about what it's like to be on the Youth Council and how it affects them, and also how we run a Stanley Town Council. I think that would be some positive feedback. Regarding the summary of findings, which is on page 144, I've never seen a summary of findings so much negativity in the feedback. These young kids, I'm not even going to go through every one. Young people find their opinions aren't valued. They feel that staff aren't well trained and not in touch with young people. That, for me, that's a damning thing. I don't know who's put it out, but to get that much feedback, which is negative, there's something going wrong with what we are doing as a county. And I think that needs to be, and I know DCC stopped the youth workers, and it's all like they haven't got youth centres to go. They're working out in the streets all the time. Maybe that should be revisited to bring some youth provision back into DCC. And the final point I'll make is on page 146 of the papers. It's on the demographics. There's only 122 young people being consulted on this document. That is a consultation for the whole of County Durham, where 122 kids is 3 classes in a comprehensive. Now, if that's a balanced approach, I don't know where that comes from. And I think really they need to look at engaging with more young people. To consult with only 122 and bring a report, it's like saying I wouldn't like to say anybody tell us what the population of Durham young people is. It's not a very high percentage. So they're my comments, and I would like them fed back. I would say we'd note it, but we need more information before we can make any decision on this.
Thank you, Councillor Timby. Anyone else want to come in? Councillor James Kane.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just want to echo what Councillor Timby's just said. To have 100 consultation, only have 122 young people, in my view, it doesn't give a great sort of sample of figures. But it would also be interesting, out of the 122 young people, how many were in the DH9 Stanley area. So I would like to just second Leslie's, Councillor Timby's suggestions there and feed that back to them.
Thank you for that, Councillor Kane. Anyone else want to come in? No.
Chair, just with regards to obviously the feedback, are we, as a partner of the my apologies, I've forgotten what the report's called now. One of those things. As a partner in this association, are we not supporting the young people's strategy, or are we feeding back some of this information as we are supporting it? However, we are disappointed at the number of involvement, and also asking further questions with regards to how many young people are from Stanley, and how do they become part of the Youth Council?
Councillor Mark Davidson, you want to come in?
Thanks, Chair. I think that, as everybody else has said, it's a bit worrying that there's only 122, but it's also a bit worrying how negative they are. But I don't know about yourselves, but if somebody asked me in November, December, or January how I felt compared to I don't know, June, July, or August, then you definitely get a more negative feedback from me in November, December, and January, for obvious reasons. And the other thing is, they've asked people in the middle of this COVID epidemic. So for me, I think that we probably do support all the things that James had on the actual report, but we are concerned that there's only 122 respondees, the negative. We'd also like to know how many in Stanley, so we can sort of maybe get them more involved, like Les said. So I think we do support the things you've said, James. It's just we're a bit concerned about some of the aspects of it. If we could, how can I phrase this? If we could ask them for the information that Les has talked about, and if you could speak to the youth and the Stars youth and community to see how they could get involved, like you suggested, and then maybe bring a report back in, I don't know, either next month or in April or whatever, then that would probably move the thing along, because at the minute, I don't want to be too negative, but I don't think that when they've done the consultations been the greatest time, really, has it? Sorry,
right,
Carol.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Chan. I'm just writing some of the things
No
down. So,
anyone else want to come in? No.
So just to confirm, Madam Mayor, our feedback that'll need to go in before the 26th of this month to the DCC officer will be that we are supporting the action plan. However, we'd like to know how many young people from Stanley are involved in the Youth Council. How do they become part of the Youth Council? We're concerned at the number of responses, of which are negative, and we're concerned at the timing. And then, obviously, following this, I'll speak to Stars Youth and Community Kick to find out a bit more of what's been done with young people, and if they're aware of this this targeted approach, I suppose.
Lovely, thank you. Everybody agree with that? Yeah.
Yep, agree.
Thank you very much.
Chair, as that's a motion to go forward, we would have to need a recorded vote, if that's okay.
Right. We'll start that then.
Make it quick. Councillor Gordon Binney.
For.
Councillor Joyce Clark.
For.
Councillor Alex Clegg.
For.
Councillor Mark Davidson.
For.
Councillor Carol Hampson.
For.
Councillor James Kane.
For.
Councillor Carl Marshall. Councillor Carl Marshall.
Can't see him.
I think he's. Oh, no, I think he's left the meeting. No problem. Councillor David Marshall.
For.
Councillor Joe McMahon.
For.
Councillor Ballinaire.
For.
Councillor John Nicholson.
For.
Jack Palace.
Agree.
Councillor Jeanette Stevenson.
For.
Councillor Les Timby.
For.
Councillor David Tully.
For.
Councillor Joanne Tully.
For.
Chair, that's unanimous with 15-4.
Thank you very much. Councillor Nicholson, did you want to come in and say something?
I did. I actually put a question out to a number of people that I know about about this question, because Les and I spoke about it earlier. And that there is one family, one girl that has come back to me and said that they're on the youth council.
On a point of order,
So
Mayor. On a point of order. Surely the debate's finished. We took a vote, and that vote's finished. So we should be moving on to the next subject.
Yes, Chair. Councillor Marshall is correct that once the vote's finished, we would need to move on.
Right. Thank you very much for that then. We shall move on to the next item, which we were asked to move further up the agenda before. The next item on the agenda is the date, time of the next meeting, which will be Tuesday, the 23rd of March, 6:30 via Microsoft Teams. And then item 18 on the agenda is the exclusion of the press and public. Councillor Mark Davidson.
Thanks, Chair. I've noticed that Councillor Nicholson's got a hand up. I don't know whether it's this bit or it's the other bit. Okay.
Won't come down.
I'd like to move the exclusion of the press and public, please, because we're going to be talking about some personal staffing information, so we need to have the public excluded. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Chair, do we have a seconder for that?
Yeah, sorry, I'll second that.
For that?
I'll second that.
Councillor James Kane, thank you.
Okay, members, I'm now going to shut down the feed, so if you bear with me for a few minutes.